Okay, so this is question number 4. This is the first section of Sunny. And so what I've done is I filled in the information that we already know. So we're trying to find variable costs, fixed costs, and the contribution margin ratio. So first of all, to find the contribution margin ratio, we have to find the contribution margin, which is your net sales revenue minus your variable cost. So we don't know what the variable cost is, but we can figure out what the contribution margin is in dollars. And the way we do that is if we multiply the contribution margin unit times the number of units, that will give us the contribution margin. And we can kind of work backwards. So when you multiply 330 times 180,000, you get 594,000, and that is our contribution margin. And we know that our contribution margin is our net sales revenue minus our that was the contribution margin, is our net sales revenue, which is 1,485,000. If we take that and we subtract variable cost, we could get the contribution margin, but we already have the contribution margin, so we need to work backwards. We need to figure out how much the variable cost is. So we're going to plug this number right here, and the way we do that is we take our total minus what's left, and we will get variable cost. So when you do subtract those two numbers, you will get $891,000 for your variable cost. Now, working backwards again, we know to get to operating income or loss, we're going to take our net sales revenue, subtract variable costs, subtract fixed costs to get operating income. But we can work backwards again, and we can take, we already know what this number 1,485,000 minus 891,000 is. It's our contribution margin of 594,000. So take that number, subtract what we have left over, and that will give you your fixed cost. And I have done that on my paper. I believe that would be 354,000. You can check that again by just taking your net sales revenue and subtracting these two numbers to get your operating income. Now, since we have those numbers, we can go ahead and do our contribution margin ratio, or we could have done it once we found contribution margin. So you take your contribution margin, I'll circle it in red, and you divide it by your net sales revenue. And when you divide 594,000 divided by 1,485,000, you will get 40%. And that would be all of the information for Sunny. Okay, now for the Rainy contribution margin. This is a little bit trickier because you really have to work backwards. We do not know net sales revenue. We do not know the contribution margin per unit. We do not know operating income. But I'm going to give you a little key here to help you to figure out how to get your net sales revenue when you have variable costs and you have your contribution margin ratio. What you can do is you can figure out, there's two ways to do this. I'm going to show you this way. So we could get our variable cost ratio, and the way we do that is we know the contribution margin ratio. We know that 100%, we take it and we subtract the 80%. That's the percentage going to the contribute to fixed cost. then you're contributing 20% to variable costs. So 20% of your net sales revenue is going to your variable costs. So we know that 20%, 0.20 of your net sales revenue, which we don't know, so that's our X. We know 20% of our net sales revenue equals $42,000 because variable costs are 20%. And we already know that that equals $42,000. So set up a little equation here, and then you can figure out 20% of what net sales revenue would give me $42,000. So divide by 0.20, and when you divide 42,000 by 0.20, you get 210,000. That's a really important trick that will help you when you're having to really work backwards. Now we can take 210,000 and subtract 42,000, and that would be our contribution margin. So our contribution margin, I'm going to write it down here. 210 minus 42 would be $168,000. Now to get your operating income or loss, take 210,000 minus 42,000 minus 184,000, and we are actually going to be at a loss of 16,000. Hence the name rainy. This is when we're not doing good. Now, contribution margin per unit. Take the contribution margin in dollars, divide by the number of units, 8,000. And when you do that, you should get $21. And that is how you do the rainy calculation. Okay, for cloudy, the operating income, you're just going to subtract those, the net sales revenue minus variable cost minus fixed cost, and that would be $265,000. And then the number of units sold, you take the net sales revenue, which is 1,825,000, and you divide by, hold on, no, you got to find the contribution margin, which is your net sales revenue minus your variable cost. So your contribution margin, when you subtract those, you're going to get $365,000. Now we have the total dollar amount. So if you divide the total dollar amount by the contribution margin per unit, when you divide those two, that's how you get the number of units sold. And then the contribution margin ratio would be your 365,000 divided by your net sales revenue, 1,825,000. When you divide those, you will get 20%. Okay, and lastly for Wendy, we're going to kind of work backwards here. First, we're going to find net sales revenue. You can, if you know variable cost and your contribution margin ratio, you can figure out net sales revenue. Remember, variable cost ratio is 100% minus the contribution margin ratio, which is 20%, and 100% minus 20% would be 80%. So the variable cost ratio is 80% of net sales revenue. So if you do 80% of net sales revenue, you know that variable cost is $441,600. So if you solve for X, that'll tell you how much net sales revenue is. So divide by 0.80, and 441,600 divided by 0.80 is going to give you a net sales revenue of $552,000. So 552,000 would go here. Now we can take 552,000, subtract variable costs, and subtract the ending income to get fixed cost, and that would give us 7,600. And then to figure out the units sold, you're going to take your contribution margin in dollars, which was the 552,000 minus the variable cost of 441,600. So your contribution margin is 110,400. Divide that by $16, and you will get $6,900 units. Sorry. And that is how you will work this problem.